This is Mr B Reads J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, and we're going to start with the incredible work of The Fellowship of the Ring, arguably one of the best books ever written. This story series is aimed at our older children in years 4, 5 and 6, and we're going to enjoy listening with it to the incredible soundtrack from the films, the music of Howard Shore. So sit back and enjoy the wonderful work and music of Lord of the Rings. J.R.R. Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring, Book 2, Chapter 10, The Breaking of the Fellowship. Aragorn led them to the right arm of the river. Here upon its western side, under the shadow of Tol Brandir, a green lawn ran down to the water from the feet of Eamon Hen. Behind it rose the first gentle slopes of the hill clad with trees, and trees marched away westward along the curving shores of the lake. A little spring fell tumbling down and fed the grass. "Here we will rest tonight," said Aragorn. "This is the lawn of Parth Gillen, a fair place in the summer days of old. Let us hope that no evil has yet come here." They drew up their boats on the green banks, and beside them they made their camp. They set a watch, but had no sight nor sound of their enemies. If Gollum had contrived to follow them, he remained unseen and unheard. Nonetheless, as the night wore on, Aragorn grew uneasy. In the small hours he got up and came to Frodo, whose turn it was to watch. "Why are you waking?" asked Frodo. "It is not your watch." "I do not know," answered Aragorn, "but a shadow and a threat has been growing in my sleep. It would be well to draw your sword." "Why?" said Frodo. "Are enemies at hand?" "Let us see what sting may show," answered Aragorn. Frodo then drew the elf blade from its sheath. To his dismay the edges gleamed dimly in the night. "Orcs," he said. "Not very near, and yet too near it seems." "I feared as much," said Aragorn, "but maybe they are not on this side of the river. The light of sting is faint, and it may point to no more than spies of Mordor roaming on the slopes of Aemon Law. We must go warily tomorrow." The day came like fire and smoke. Low in the east there were black bars of cloud, like the fumes of a great burning. The rising sun lit them from beneath with flames of murky red, but soon it climbed above them into a clear sky. The summit of Tol Brandir was tipped with gold. Frodo looked out eastward and gazed at the tall island. Its sides sprang sheer out of the running water. High up above the tall cliffs were steep slopes upon which trees climbed, mounting one head above another, and above them again were grey faces of inaccessible rock crowned by a great spire of stone. Many birds were circling about it, but no sign of any other living things could be seen. When they had eaten, Aragorn called the company together. "The day has come at last," he said, "the day of choice which we have long delayed. What shall now become of our company that has travelled so far in fellowship? Shall we turn west with Boromir and go to the wars of Gondor, or turn east to the Fear and Shadow? Whatever we must do soon. We cannot long hold here. The enemy is on the eastern shore, we know, but I fear that the orcs may already be on this side of the water as well." There was a long silence in which no one spoke or moved. "Well, Frodo," said Aragorn at last, "I fear that the burden is laid upon you. You are the ring-bearer, appointed by the council. Your own way you alone can choose. In this matter I cannot advise you now. I am not Gandalf, and though I have tried to bear his part, I do not know what design or hope he had for this hour, if indeed he had any. Most likely it seems that if he were here now, the choice would still wait on you, such is your fate." Frodo did not answer at once. Then he spoke slowly. "I know that haste is needed, yet I cannot choose. The burden is heavy. Give me an hour longer, and I will speak. Let me be alone." Aragorn looked at him with kindly pity. "Very well, Frodo, son of Drogo," he said. "You shall have an hour, and you shall be alone. We will stay here for a while, but do not stray far out of call." Presently Frodo got up and walked away, and Sam, who had been watching his master with great concern, saw that while the others restrained themselves and did not stare at him, the eyes of Boromir followed Frodo intently until he passed out of sight in the trees at the foot of Eamon Hen. Wandering aimlessly at first in the wood, Frodo found that his feet were leading him up towards the slope of the hill. He came to a path, the dwindling ruins of a road of long ago. In steep places stairs of stone had been hewn, but now they were cracked and worn and split by the roots of trees. For some while he climbed, not caring which way he went, until he came to a grassy place. Rowan trees grew about it, and in the midst was a wide flat stone. The little upland lawn was open upon the east, and was filled now with the early sunlight. Frodo halted and looked out over the river, and far below him to Tol Brandir. The voice of the Ravos Falls was a mighty roaring, mingled with a deep throbbing boom. He sat down upon the stone and cupped his chin in his hands, staring eastwards, but seeing little with his eyes. All that had happened since Bilbo left the Shire was passing through his mind, and he recalled and pondered everything that he could remember of Gandalf's words. Suddenly he awoke from his thoughts. A strange feeling came to him that something was behind him, that unfriendly eyes were upon him. He sprang up and turned, but all that he saw to his surprise was Boromir, and his face was smiling and kind.
I was afraid for you, Frodo, he said, coming forward. If Aragorn is right and orcs are near, then none of us should wander alone, and you least of all, so much depends on you, and my heart too is heavy. May I stay now for a while and talk, since I have found you? Where there are so many, all speech becomes a debate without end, but two together may perhaps find wisdom. You are kind, answered Frodo, but I do not think that any speech will help me, for I know what I should do, but I am afraid of doing it. Boromir stood silent, the falls roared endlessly on. The wind murmured in the branches of the trees. Frodo shivered. Suddenly Boromir came and sat beside him. Are you sure that you do not suffer needlessly? He said. I wish to help you. You need counsel in your hard choice. Will you not take mine? I think I know already what counsel you would give me, Boromir, said Frodo, and it would seem like wisdom, but for the warning of my heart. Warning? Warning against what? Said Boromir sharply. Against delay, against the way that seems easier, against refusal of the burden that is laid on me, against, well, if it must be said, against trust in the strength and truth of men. Yet that strength has long protected you far away in your little country, though you knew it not. I do not doubt the valour of your people, but the world is changing, said Frodo. The walls of Minas Tirith may be strong, but they are not strong enough if they fail, and what then? We shall fall in battle valiantly, yet there is still hope that they will not fall. No hope while the ring lasts, said Frodo. Ah, the ring, said Boromir, his eyes lighting. The ring. Is it not a strange fate that we should suffer so much fear and doubt for so small a thing? So small a thing, and I have seen it only for an instant in the house of Elrond. Could I not have a sight of it again? Frodo looked up. His heart went suddenly cold. He caught the strange gleam in Boromir's eyes, yet his face was still kind and friendly. It is best that it should lie hidden, he answered. As you wish, I care not, said Boromir. Yet may I not even speak of it? For you seem ever to only think of its power in the hands of the enemy, of its evil uses, not of its good. The world is changing, you say. Minas Tirith will fall if the ring lasts. But why? Certainly if the ring were with the enemy. But why if it were with us? Were you not at the council, answered Frodo? Because we cannot use it, and what is done with it turns to evil. Boromir got up and walked about impatiently. So you go on, he cried. Gandalf, Elrond, all those folk have taught you to say so. For themselves they may be right. These elves and half-elves and wizards, they would come to grief perhaps. True-hearted men will not be corrupted. We of Minas Tirith have been staunch through long years of trial. We do not desire the power of wizard lords, only strength to defend ourselves, strength in a just cause. And behold, in our need, chance brings to light the Ring of Power. It is a gift, I say, a gift to the foes of Mordor. It is mad not to use it, to not use the power of the enemy against him. What could a warrior do in this hour, a great leader? What could not Aragorn do? Or if he refuses, why not Boromir? The ring would give me mighty power of command. How I would drive away the hosts of Mordor, and all the men would flock to my banner. Boromir stood up and down, speaking ever more loudly. Almost he seemed to have forgotten Frodo, while his talk dwelt on walls and weapons and the mustering of men, and he drew plans for great alliances and glorious victories to be, and he cast down Mordor and became himself a mighty king, benevolent and wise. Suddenly he stopped and waved his arms. And they tell us to throw it away, he cried. I do not say destroy it. That might be well if reason could show any way of doing so. It does not. The only plan that is proposed to us is that a halfling should walk blindly into Mordor and offer the enemy every chance of recapturing it for himself. Sheer folly. Surely you see it, my friend, he said, turning now suddenly to Frodo again. You say that you are afraid. If it is so, the boldest should pardon you. But is it not really your good sense that revolts? No, I am afraid, said Frodo, simply afraid. But I am glad to have heard you speak so fully. My mind is clearer now. Then you will come to Minas Tirith, cried Boromir. His eyes were shining and his face eager. You misunderstand me, said Frodo. But you will come at least for a while, Boromir persisted. My city is not far now, and it is little further from there to Mordor than from here. We have been long in the wilderness, and you need news of what the enemy is doing before you make a move. Come with me, Frodo, he said. You need rest before your venture, if you must go on. He laid his hand on the hobbit's shoulder in friendly fashion, but Frodo felt the hand trembling with suppressed excitement. He stepped quickly away and eyed with alarm the tall man, nearly twice his height and many times his match in strength. Why are you so unfriendly, said Boromir. I am a true man, neither thief nor tracker. I need your ring, that you know now, but I give you my word that I desire not to keep it. Will you not at least let me make trial of my plan? Lend me the ring. No, no, cried Frodo. The council laid it upon me to bear. It is by our own folly that the enemy will defeat us, cried Boromir. How it angers me! Fool! Obstinate fool, running wilfully to death and ruining our cause. If any mortals have claim to the ring, it is the men of Númenor and not halflings. It is not yours save by unhappy chance. It might have been mine, it should have been mine. Give it to me. And suddenly he sprang over the stone and leapt at Frodo. His fair and pleasant face was hideously changed. A raging fire was in his eyes. Frodo dodged aside. There was only one thing he could do. Trembling, he pulled out the ring upon its chain and quickly slipped it on his finger. Even as Boromir sprang at him again, the man gasped, stared for a moment amazed, and then ran wildly about, seeking here and there among the rocks and trees. Miserable trickster, he cried. Then catching his foot on a stone, he fell sprawling and lay upon his face. Then suddenly he wept. He rose and passed his hand over his eyes, dashing away the tears. What have I said? He cried. What have I done? Frodo! Frodo, he called. Come back! A madness took me, but it has passed. Come back! There was no answer. Frodo did not even hear his cries. He was already far away, leaping blindly up the path to the top of the hill. Terror and grief shook him, seeing in his thought only the mad, fierce face of Boromir and his burning eyes. Soon he came out alone on the summit of Amon Hen and halted, gasping for breath. He saw, as though through a mist, a wide flat circle paved with mighty flags and surrounded with the crumbling battlement, and in the middle, sat upon 4 carven pillars, was a high seat, reached by a stair of many steps. Up he went and sat upon the ancient chair, feeling like a lost child that had clambered upon the throne of mountain kings. He seemed to be in a world of mist in which there were only shadows. The ring was upon him. Then, here and there, the mist gave way and he saw many visions. Then turning south again, he beheld Minas Tirith, far away it seemed, and beautiful. White-walled, many-towered, proud and fair upon its mountain seat. Its battlements glittered with steel, and its turrets were bright with many banners. Hope leapt in his heart. But against Minas Tirith was set another fortress, greater and more strong. Further eastwards his eyes were drawn. It passed the ruined bridges of Osgiliath, the grinning gates of Minas Morgul and the haunted mountains, and it looked upon Gorgoroth, the Valley of Terror, in the land of Mordor. Darkness lay there under the sun. Fire glowed amid the smoke. Mount Doom was burning and a great reek rising from it. Then at last his gaze was held, wall upon wall, battlement upon battlement, black, immeasurably strong, mountain of iron, gate of steel, tower of adamant. He saw it, Barad-dûr, the fortress of Sauron. All hope left him. And suddenly he felt the eye. There was an eye in the dark tower that did not sleep. He knew that it had become aware of his gaze. A fierce, eager will was there. It leapt towards him, almost like a finger. He felt it, searching for him. Very soon it would nail him down, know just exactly where he was. Amon Lor it touched. It glanced upon Dol Brandir. He threw himself from the seat, crouching, covering his head with his grey hood. He heard himself crying out, "Never! Never!" He took the ring off his finger. He was kneeling in clear sunlight before the high seat. A black shadow seemed to pass like an arm above him. It missed Amon Hen and groped out west and faded. Then all the sky was clean and blue, and birds sang in every tree. Frodo rose to his feet. A great weariness was on him, but his will was firm and his heart lighter. He spoke aloud to himself. "I will do now what I must," he said. "This at least is plain. The evil of the ring is already at work even in the company, and the ring must leave them before it does more harm. I will go alone. Some I cannot trust, and those I can trust are too dear to me. Poor old Sam and Merry and Pippin, Strider too. His heart yearns for Minas Tirith, and he will be needed there now Boromir has fallen into evil. I will go alone, and at once." He went quickly down the path and came back to the lawn where Boromir had found him. Then he halted, listening. He hesitated. "What can I do?" he muttered. "I must go now or I shall never go. I shan't get a chance again. I hate leaving them, and like this without any explanation." Slowly he drew out the ring and put it on once more. He vanished and passed down the hill, less than a rustle of the wind. The others remained along by the riverside. For some time they had been silent, and now they were sitting in a circle and they were talking. What would Frodo choose to do? Why was he hesitating? "He is debating which course is the most desperate, I think," said Aragorn, "and well he may. It is now more hopeless than ever for the company to go east, since we have been tracked by Gollum and must fear that the secret of our journey is already betrayed. In Minas Tirith we may remain there for a while and make a brave stand with the ring, but the Lord Denethor and all his men cannot hope to do what even Elrond said was beyond his power, either to keep the burden secret or to hold off the full might of the enemy when he comes to take it. Which way would any of us choose in Frodo's place? I do not know. Now indeed we missed Gandalf the most." "Begging your pardon," said Sam, "I don't think you understand my master at all. He isn't hesitating about which way to go, of course not. What's the good of Minas Tirith anyway? To him I mean, begging your pardon, Master Boromir," he added, and turned. It was then that they discovered that Boromir, who at first had been sitting quietly on the outside of the circle, was no longer there. "Now where's he got to?" cried Sam, looking worried. "He's been a bit queer lately, to my mind. But anyway, he's not in this business. He's off to his home, as he always said, and no blame on him. But Mr. Frodo, he knows he's got to find the cracks of Mount Doom if he can, but he's afraid. Now it's come to the point, he's just plain terrified. That's what his trouble is. And he isn't worried about us either, whether we'll go along with him or not. He knows we mean to. That's another thing that's bothering him. If he screws himself up to go, he'll want to go alone. Mark my words. We're going to have trouble when he comes back." "I believe you speak more wisely than any of us, Sam," said Aragorn. "And what shall we do if you prove right?" "Stop him! Don't let him go!" cried Pippin. "I wonder," said Aragorn. "He is the bearer, and the fate of the burden is on him. I do not think that it is our part to drive him one way or the other, nor do I think that we should succeed if we tried." "Well, I wish Frodo would come back and let us get it over," said Pippin. "This waiting is horrible. Surely the time is up." "Yes," said Aragorn. "The hour is long past. The morning is wearing away. We must call for him." It was at that moment that Boromir reappeared. He came out of the trees and walked towards them without speaking. His face looked grim and sad. He paused as if counting those that were present, and then sat down aloof, with his eyes on the ground. "Where have you been, Boromir?" asked Aragorn. "Have you seen Frodo?" Boromir hesitated for a second. "Yes and no," he answered slowly. "Yes, I found him some way up the hill, and I spoke to him. I urged him to come to Minas Tirith and not to go east. I grew angry, and he left me. He must have put the ring on. I could not find him again. I thought he would return to you." "Is that all you have to say?" said Aragorn, looking hard and not too kindly at Boromir. "Yes," he answered. "I will say no more yet." "This is bad," cried Sam, jumping up. "I don't know what this man has been up to. Why should Mr. Frodo put the ring on? He didn't ought to have, and if he has, goodness knows what's happened." "But he wouldn't keep it on," said Merry, "not for long." "But where did he go? Where is he?" cried Pippin. "He's been away ages now." "How long is it since you last saw Frodo, Boromir?" asked Aragorn. "Half an hour, maybe," he answered. "Or it might be an hour. I have wondered for some time since. I do not know. I do not know." He put his head in his hands and sat as if bowed with grief. "An hour since he vanished," shouted Sam. "We must try and find him at once. Come on." "Wait a moment," cried Aragorn. It was no good. They took no notice of him. Sam had dashed off first, Merry and Pippin had followed, and Legolas and Gimli were running. A sudden panic or madness seemed to have fallen on the company. "We shall all be scattered and lost," groaned Aragorn. "Boromir, I do not know what part you have played in this mischief, but help now. Go after those 2 young hobbits and guard them at the least, even if you cannot find Frodo. Come back to this spot if you find him, or any traces of him. I shall return soon." Aragorn sprang swiftly away and went in pursuit of Sam. Just as he reached the little lawn among the rowan trees, he overtook him, toiling uphill, panting and calling for Frodo. "Come with me, Sam," Aragorn said. "None of us should be alone. There is mischief about, I feel it. I am going to the top to the seat of Aemon Hen to see what we may see. And look, it is as my heart guessed. Frodo went this way. Follow me, and keep your eyes open." Aragorn sped up the path. Sam did his best, but he could not keep up with Strider the ranger, and soon fell behind. He had not gone far before Aragorn was out of sight ahead. Sam stopped and puffed. Suddenly he clapped his hand to his head. "Wait there, Sam Gamgee," he said aloud. "Your legs are too short, so use your head. Let me see now. Something scared Mr. Frodo badly, so he's made his mind up at last. Not without Sam, surely. But yes, even without Sam. That's hard, cruel hard." Sam passed his hand over his eyes, brushing away the tears. "Steady there, Gamgee," he said. "Think if you can. He can't fly across rivers, and he can't jump waterfalls. He's got no gear. So he's going to go back to the boats. Back to the boat! Back to the boats, Sam! Quick, like lightning!" Sam turned and bolted back down the path. He fell and cut his knees. Up he got and ran on. He came to the edge of the lawn of Parthgillen by the shore where the boats were drawn up out of the water. No one was there. There seemed to be cries in the woods behind, but he did not heed them. He stood gazing for a moment, stock still, gaping. A boat was sliding down the bank all by itself. With a shout, Sam raced across the grass. The boat slipped into the water. "I'm coming, Mr. Frodo, I'm coming!" called Sam. He flung himself from the bank, clutching at the departing boat. He missed it by a yard. With a cry and a splash, he fell face downward into the water. Gurgling, he went under, and the river closed over his curly head. An exclamation of dismay came from the empty boat. A paddle swirled, and the boat pulled about. Frodo was just in time to grasp Sam by the hair as he came up, bubbling and struggling in the water. "Up you come, Sam," said Frodo. "Take my hand." "Save me, Mr. Frodo," gasped Sam. "I can't swim. I can't see your hand." "Here it is. Don't pinch it, Sam. I won't let go. Tread water and don't flounder, or you'll upset the boat." With a few strokes, Frodo brought the boat back to the bank, and Sam was able to scramble out, wet as a water rat. Frodo took off the ring and stepped ashore again. "Of all the confounded nuisances, you are the worst, Sam," he said. "Oh, Mr. Frodo, that's hard," said Sam, shivering. "That's hard, trying to go without me and all. If I hadn't guessed right, where would you be now?" "Safely on my way," he said. "Safely," said Sam. "All alone and without me to help you? I couldn't have borne it. It would have been the death of me." "It would be the death of you to come with me, Sam," said Frodo, "and I could not have borne that." "Not as certain as being left behind," said Sam. "But I am going to Mordor." "I know that well enough, Mr. Frodo. Of course you are, and I'm coming with you." "Now, Sam," said Frodo, "don't hinder me. The others will be coming back at any moment. If they catch me here, I shall have to argue and explain, and I shall never have the heart or the chance to get off. But I must go at once. It's the only way." "Of course it is," answered Sam, "but not alone. I'm coming too. Or neither of us isn't going. I'll knock holes in all the boats first." Frodo actually laughed. A sudden warmth and gladness touched his heart. "Leave one," he said. "We'll need it. But you can't come like this without your gear or food or anything." "Just hold on a moment and I'll get my stuff," cried Sam eagerly. He rushed to the camping place, fished out his pack from the pile, grabbed a spare blanket and some extra packages of food and ran back. "So all my plan is spoilt," said Frodo. "It's no good trying to escape you. But I'm glad, Sam. I cannot tell you how glad I am. Come along. It is plain that we were meant to go together. We will go, and may the others find a safe road. Strider will look after them. I don't suppose we shall see them ever again." "Yet we may, Mr. Frodo," said Sam. "Yet we may." So Frodo and Sam set off on the last stage of the quest together. Frodo paddled away from the shore, and the river bore them swiftly away down the western arm and past the frowning cliffs of Tol Brandir. The roar of the great falls drew nearer. It was hard work to pass across the current at the southern end of the island and drive the boat eastward towards the far shore. At length they came to land again upon the southern slopes of Amon Lor. Then, shouldering their burdens, they set off, seeking a path that would bring them over the grey hills of the Emyn Will and down into the land of shadow. Aragorn sped up the hill. Every now and again he bent to the ground. Hobbits go light, and their footprints are not easy, even for a ranger to read. But not far from the top, a spring crossed the path, and in the wet earth he saw what he was seeking. It was clear that Frodo had run up to the hilltop, and then had run down the hill the same way. Even as he gazed, his quick ears caught sounds in the woodlands below, on the west side of the river. He stiffened. There were cries, and among them, to his horror, he could distinguish the harsh voices of orcs. Then suddenly, with a deep-throated call, a great horn blew, and the blasts of it smote the hills and echoed in the hollows, rising in a mighty shout above the roaring of the falls. "The horn of Boromir!" he cried. "He is in need!" He sprang down the steps and away, leaping down the path. "Alas, an ill fate is on me this day, and all that I do goes amiss. Where is Sam?" As he ran, the cries came louder, but fainter now. Desperately the horn was blowing. Fierce and shrill rose the yells of the orcs, and suddenly the horn calls ceased. Aragorn raced down the last slope, but before he could reach the hill's foot, the sounds died away, and as he turned to the left and ran towards them, they retreated, until at last he could hear them no more. Drawing his bright sword and crying, "Elendil! Elendil!" he crashed through the trees. In a little glade not far from the lake, he found Boromir. He was sitting with his back to a great tree as if resting, but Aragorn saw that he was pierced with many black feathered arrows. His sword was still in his hand, but it was broken near the hilt. His horn was cloven in two, and at his side. Many orcs lay slain, piled all about him and at his feet. Aragorn knelt beside him. Boromir opened his eyes and strove to speak. At last words slowly came out. "I tried to take the ring from Frodo," he said. "I'm sorry, I have paid the price." His glance strayed to the fallen enemies. 20 at least lay there. "They have gone. The halflings, the orcs have taken them. I think they are not dead. Orcs bound them." He paused and his eyes closed wearily. After a moment he spoke again. "Farewell, Aragorn. Go to Minas Tirith and save my people. I have failed." "No," said Aragorn, taking his hand and kissing his brow. "You have conquered. Few have gained such a victory. Be at peace. Minas Tirith shall not fall." Boromir smiled. "Which way did they go? Was Frodo there?" said Aragorn. But Boromir did not speak again. "Alas," said Aragorn, "thus passes the heir of Denethor, Lord of the Tower of Guard. This is a bitter end. Now the company is all in ruin. It is I that have failed. Vain was Gandalf's trust in me. What shall I do now? Boromir has laid it on me to go to Minas Tirith, and my heart desires it. But where are the ring and the bearer? How shall I find them, and save the quest from disaster?" He knelt for a while, bent with weeping, still clasping Boromir's hand. So it was that Legolas and Gimli found him. They came from the western slopes of the hill, silently creeping through the trees, as if they were hunting. Gimli had his axe in his hand, and Legolas his long knife. All his arrows were spent. When they came into the glade, they halted in amazement, and then they stood a moment with heads bowed in grief, for it seemed to them plain what had happened. "Alas," said Legolas, coming to Aragorn's side, "we have hunted and slain many orcs in the woods, but we should have been far more of use here. We came when we heard the horn, but too late it seems. I fear you have taken deadly hurt." "Boromir is dead," said Aragorn. "I am unscathed, for I was not here with him. He fell defending the hobbits, while I was away up the hill." "The hobbits!" cried Gimli. "Where are they? Where is Frodo?" "I do not know," answered Aragorn wearily. "Before he died, Boromir told me that the orcs had bound them. He did not think that they were dead, but I did not ask him if Frodo and Sam were with him. Not until it was too late. All that I have done today has gone amiss. What is to be done now?" "First we must tend the fallen," said Legolas. "We cannot leave Boromir lying like carrion among these foul orcs." "But we must be swift," said Gimli. "He would not wish us to linger. We must follow the orcs if there is hope that they are carrying the hobbits." "But we do not know whether the ring-bearer is with them or not," said Aragorn. "Are we to abandon Frodo? Must we not seek him first? An evil choice is now before us." "Then let us do first what we must do," said Legolas. "We have not the time or the tools to bury our comrade fully, or to raise a mound over him. Then let us lay him in a boat with his weapons and the weapons of his vanquished foes," said Aragorn. "We will send him to the falls of Rauos and give him to Anduin. The river of Gondor will take care at least that no evil creature dishonours his bones." Quickly they searched the bodies of the orcs, gathering their swords and cloven helms and shields into a heap. "See," cried Aragorn, "here we find tokens." He picked out from the pile of grim weapons 2 knives, leaf-bladed, damasked in gold and red. Searching further, he found also the sheaths, black, set with small red gems. "No orc tools these," he said. "These were borne by the hobbits. If they are still alive, our friends are weaponless. I will take these things, hoping against hope that one day we can give them back." Aragorn looked on the ground at all the slain orcs around them. "Here lie many that are not folk of Mordor. Some are from the north, from the Misty Mountains, if I know anything of orcs and their kinds. And here are others strange to me. Their gear is not after the manner of orcs at all. Upon their shields they bore a strange device, a small white hand in the centre of a black field. On the front of their iron helms was set an S rune, wrought of some white metal. I have not seen these tokens before, said Aragorn. What do they mean? S is for Sauron, said Gimli. That is easy to read. Nay, said Legolas. Sauron does not use elf runes, he uses a red eye for his symbol. Neither does he use his right name, nor permit it to be spelt or spoken, said Aragorn. Aragorn stood and thought for a moment. The S is for Saruman, I guess, he said at length. There is an evil afoot in Isengard, and the west is no longer safe. It is as Gandalf feared. By some means the traitor Saruman has had news of our journey. It is likely, too, that he knows of Gandalf's fall. Pursuers from Moria must have escaped the vigilance of Lorien, or they may have avoided that land and come to Isengard by other paths. Orcs travel fast. But Saruman has many ways of learning news. Do you remember the birds? Well, we have no time to ponder riddles, said Gimli. Let us bear Boromir away. But after that we must guess the riddles if we are to choose our course rightly, answered Aragorn. Maybe there is no right choice, said Gimli. Taking his axe, the dwarf now cut several branches. These they lashed together with bowstrings and spread their cloaks upon the frame. Upon this rough bier they carried the body of their companion to the shore, together with such trophies of his last battle as they chose to send forth with him. It was only a short way, yet they found it no easy task, for Boromir was a man both tall and strong. At the waterside, Aragorn remained watching the bier, while Legolas and Gimli hastened back on foot to Parthgalen to collect the boats. It was a mile or more, and it was some time before they came back, paddling the two boats swiftly along the shore. There is a strange tale to tell, said Legolas. There were only two boats upon the bank. We could find no trace of the other. Have orcs been there, said Aragorn. We saw no signs of them, answered Gimli, and the orcs would have taken or destroyed all the boats and the baggage as well. I will look on the ground when we come there, said Aragorn. Now they laid Boromir in the middle of the boat that was to bear him away. The grey hood and elven cloak they folded and placed beneath his head. They combed his long dark hair and arrayed it upon his shoulders. The golden belt of Lorien gleamed about his waist. His helm they set beside him, and across his lap they laid the cloven horn and the hilt and shards of his sword. Beneath his feet they put the swords of his enemies, then fastening the prow to the stern of the other boat, they drew him out into the water. They rowed sadly along the shore, and turning into the swift-running channel, they passed the green glade of Parthgalen. The steep sides of Tol Brandir were glowing. It was now mid-afternoon. As they went south, the fume of Rhavos rose and shimmered before them, a haze of gold. The rush and thunder of the falls shook the windless air. Sorrowfully they cast loose the funeral boat. There Boromir lay, restful, peaceful, gliding upon the bosom of the flowing water. The stream took him while they held their own boat back with their paddles, and then slowly his boat departed, waning to a dark spot against the golden light, and then suddenly it vanished. Rhavos roared on, unchanging. The river had taken Boromir, son of Denethor, and he was not seen again in Minas Tirith, standing as he used to stand upon the White Tower in the morning. But in Gondor, in after days, it long was said that the elven boat rode the falls and the foaming pool and bore him down through Osgiliath and past the many mouths of Anduin out into the great sea at night and under the stars. For a while the three companions remained silent, gazing after him. Then Aragorn spoke. They will look for him from the White Tower, he said, but he will not return again from the mountain or from the sea. They turned the boat, and then they drove it with all the speed that they could against the stream back to Parthgalen. There Aragorn surveyed the green lawn quickly but thoroughly, stooping often to the earth. No orcs have been on this ground, he said, otherwise nothing can be made out for certain. All our footprints are here, crossing and recrossing. I cannot tell whether any of the hobbits have come back since the search for Frodo began. He returned to the bank, close to where the hill from the spring trickled out into the river. There are some clear prints here, he said. A hobbit waded out into the water and back, but I cannot say how long ago. How then do you read this riddle? Asked Gimli. Aragorn did not answer at once, but went back to the carrying place and looked at the baggage. 2 packs are missing, he said, and one is certainly Sam's. It was rather large and heavy. This, then, is the answer. Frodo has gone by boat, and Sam has gone with him. Frodo must have returned while we were all away. I met Sam going up the hill and told him to follow me, but plainly he did not do so. He must have guessed Frodo's mind and come back here before he had gone. But why should they leave us behind and without a word, said Gimli. That was a strange deed. And a brave deed, said Aragorn. Sam was right, I think. Frodo did not wish to lead any friend to death with him in Mordor, but he knew that he must go himself. Something happened after he left us that overcame his fear and doubt. Maybe hunting orcs came on him and he fled, said Legolas. He fled, certainly, said Aragorn, but not, I think, from orcs. What he thought was the cause of Frodo's sudden resolve and flight, Aragorn did not say. The last words of Boromir he long kept secret. Well, so much at least is now clear, said Legolas. Frodo is no longer on this side of the river. Only he can have taken the boat, and Sam is with him. Only he would have taken his pack. Our choice then, said Gimli, is either to take the remaining boat and follow Frodo, or else to follow the orcs on foot. There is little hope either way. We've already lost precious hours. Let me think, said Aragorn, and now may I make a right choice and change the evil fate of this unhappy day. He stood silent for a moment. I will follow the orcs, he said at last. I would have guided Frodo to Mordor and gone with him to the end, but if we seek him now in the wilderness, we must abandon the captives to torment and death. My heart speaks clearly at last. The fate of the bearer is in our hands no longer. The company has played its part, yet we that remain cannot forsake our companions while we have strength left. Come, we will go now, leave all that can be spared behind. We will press on by day and by night, and we will find those orcs, and we will rescue poor Merry and Pippin. They drew up the last boat and carried it to the trees. They laid beneath it such of their goods as they did not need and could not carry away. Then they left Parthgirlen. The afternoon was fading as they came back to the glade where Boromir had fallen. There they picked up the trail of the orcs. It needed little skill to find. No other folk make such a trampling, said Legolas, but they go with a great speed for all that, said Aragorn, and they do not tire. Well after them, said Gimli. Dwarves too can go swiftly, and they do not tire sooner than orcs. But it will be a long chase, they have a long start. Yes, said Aragorn, we shall need all the endurance of dwarves, but come, with hope or without hope, we will follow the trail of our enemies, and woe to them if we prove the swifter. We will make such a chase as shall be a count and a marvel among the three kindreds, elves, dwarves, and men. Forth the three hunters. Like a deer he sprang away. Through the trees he sped, on and on he led them, tireless and swift, now that his mind was at last made up. The woods about the lake they left behind, long slopes they climbed, dark, hard-edged against the sky, already red with sunset. Dusk came. They passed away, grey shadows, in a stony land.